All right, everyone, I'm here to react to more Elon Musk footage from the last week. Let's get started.
There's the people who cannot stand Trump now are coming towards Musk. Tom, your thoughts, third party, and the whole falling out of how Epstein was managed. Do you think that's going to influence Musk to go even further with America Party?
Well, Musk has a chip on his shoulder because there's two sides to Tesla. And I connected with a couple of people last night, was talking about it, and they agreed with my take. And my take is everybody's looking at the cars. It's not the cars. 60%, 60, ladies and gentlemen, of the high voltage chargers in America are owned and operated by Tesla under contracts with literally every other EV maker. So when you take away the EV mandate, you're not just, causing issues with Tesla, the car company, you're causing issues with Vinny Tesla, the gas station, the electric gas station. But clearly you have a very angry Elon. So now he's angry. Now to answer your question directly, Pat, he realized how he could influence an election because he just did. He went out there with his money and his support and everything that went with it. Was it good that RFK walked on stage in Phoenix? Yes, it was. Was that helpful? Yes, it was. Was RFK trying to pull himself off the ballots, but the Democrats wouldn't let him? Remember? No, you gotta stay put. You gotta keep doing this. Yeah, there was that shenanigans going on. But Elon Musk learned through the election that he could influence it. And so now he's upset. He's pissed off for many reasons. His buddy, I think, is the reason Trump talked about that. I think his buddy not being on NASA really upset him, and the EV mandate has upset him. So if you're Elon Musk, it doesn't have to be rational, Pat, right? It's just, wait a minute. Did I help just you guys get elected? And now I know we talked about the EV mandate, but this really screws with Tesla on both sides. The service station, the electric service station side, and my cars. And now you won't even let me. I just helped you guys. I just helped you get a couple guys home that Boeing couldn't. And so now you're not even going to help me maybe with one of my guys? Isn't this the way it works?
Okay, so I actually have to disagree pretty heavily with this statement. It's been very obvious and clear that Elon has been pro-elimination of EV mandates for a really long time. It doesn't take that much time to go on X and look at his previous post history, his previous interviews, where he has been pro-elimination of the EV tax credit. Now, of course, that it's also naive to say, Elon is getting involved in politics purely because he wants the world to be a better place. And I think there is a lot of truth to that, but it's also true that, he wouldn't pair himself with an administration that's not going to be at least somewhat supportive to his businesses. The hypocrisy of the Trump administration, though, unfortunately here, is that they are increasing subsidies for older technologies, which is fossil fuel related, like, gas and natural gas and coal and oil, et cetera, the whole drill baby drill thing that Trump likes to tout all the time. They are increasing subsidies for that, but they're reducing subsidies for the most important next generation energies, which are related to batteries, they're related to renewables, and they're related to solar. Like it or not, the cost curves for these technologies are plummeting, which is going to cause that technology to be the best source of generating energy out of anything else. And then with the advent of artificial intelligence, we're going to need as much energy as humanly possible. And fossil fuels are limited, while energy like solar is unlimited because we have a sun in the sky that powers us 24/7. And by removing those mandates in a lot of different ways, you are regressing America's ability to have next generation energy systems in the age of artificial intelligence. So this is not just like it hurts Tesla thing. This is a regressive move by the Trump administration, unfortunately, when it comes to energy specifically. And Elon's involvement in that, him getting mad because of the EV mandate is just provably, demonstrably false, when he has been repeatedly on record saying that he wants those all subsidies gone. But when you increase fossil fuel subsidies and you decrease EV subsidies, you're just creating an even further unfair environment for companies like Tesla to operate in, and that's just not fair.
And now what's going on here, he's tapping into America's feelings about fairness. And he's connecting with that. And he's got people that are coming up, like Mark Cuban, who is a dissatisfied guy, far more left, but a dissatisfied guy. And so now we have this. It's not as simple, and I went back and looked at this. It's not as simple as what happened in Connecticut. In Connecticut, they got upset. They got really upset with their senator. And so they said, we're going to primary you. And they did. And what happened? Boom. They got their guy on the ballot and he was primaried out. And then what he did, I'll run as an independent. And the rest of Connecticut came back and said, well, now that we can all vote, not just the Democrats, we voted for a guy and suddenly we have an independent senator. So away we go. So you can see cases where it's happened. And he's right about one thing strategically. I think he needs more than that. I think you need 4 senators and about 10 seats. But he's not wrong in the point. We're only talking about the math here because I went back and looked at his math. But 4 and 10 with the current fractured Congress and Senate, you could control a hell of a lot. You could influence a hell of a lot because you could be the deciding vote and said, nope, you got to go back. Pork, remember what we found out was in the Inflation Reduction Act? Yeah. Money for Ukraine. Yeah. How does that? Well, guess what? It's in every bill. So now these people in the America Party could go in and say, hey, I need this and I need this. And now you've got our votes and you're over the top, but I need this.
So let's just say he's worth $7 billion. Musk today is worth what? What is Musk worth today?
600.
He's worth $300 billion, $400 billion, some number like that. So what's his net worth today? Musk is going to be roughly $346 billion net worth. Okay. He lost $15 billion yesterday. Devastated financially, right? Obviously he's not. He's got $350 billion.
He's doing okay.
So he's got about 100 times more money than Ross Perot had. Now, what did Ross Perot have that Elon doesn't have? What's the one thing Ross Perot had when he started a political party that Musk doesn't have? One thing. You know what it is? Ross Perot is an actual natural born citizen, which means later on the Reform Party, you know what happened? When's the last time you heard about the Reform Party? Nothing. Pat Buchanan, there was a fight, I can't believe this, I can't believe that, and it completely disappeared. So, say Musk starts a political party. Then he needs a face. The person to be the face to run to become a president for him, he has to assume that person's going to listen to 100% of what Musk tells him to do. Yeah. Who's going to be that person? Think about what I just said, okay? He has to assume, Tom, that whoever he gets has to listen to 100% of what he says. Who's that going to be? Vivek? I don't think so. Vivek has got a strong personality. Is he going to go after J.D. Vance because some say that's his candidate through Peter Thiel? Who's he going to go get? So you go start a political party.
Who's going to be the main guy?
Who's going to be your guy?
I don't think it's Vivek. I don't think he's strong enough.
Again, the challenge, no matter who it is, though, what bothers Elon is that you have to do 100% of what Elon believes. Mm-hmm. Or else what's the point of him starting a political party?
Yeah, you're right.
Think about what I'm saying to you right now. Is he going to be able to control 100% of any individual that runs? So here's what happens. They get into the office. What's the first thing people are going to say? Hey, man, I just want to make sure you're not owned by Elon. Are you? Are you your own man? I'm my own man.
I've been saying this since such and such.
Really?
Yeah.
So now what's Elon going to do? Attack him again?
Yeah.
Do you think Elon is to this? Meaning, does he have the stomach to go through this and through this and through this at the expense of his board, his shareholders, his stock prices plummeting? At what point does he just bail?
Nobody can
pull the
control
ripcord.
This guy. He has it. He has the stomach to go do it. But his businesses may take a hit. And he may find a different strategy to go about it. Right now, you have to realize, this is a guy that to have the level of drive that he has, that drive doesn't come just because you want to be somebody. That drive doesn't come just because you want to have money. That drive doesn't come because he wants a nice car and impress the girls. The guy's been with, enough girls to where he can put that list together and impress anybody else's list of girls that they've been with, right? This is about who offended him at what level. The guy's been offended at the highest level by the most powerful man in the world, Trump, and that level of being publicly humiliated and offended, he's not going to let go. He's not. So
you're saying he's being emotional?
No, no. That's his fuel. The people run on different kind of octane fuel. Some cars can't run on the same high octane fuel as other cars run on. You put it in there, it's just not going to work.
Some cars are EVs.
Yeah, but
Sometimes you need EV mandate.
this guy's a high octane offensive. You offend him, he ain't forgetting about. Think about like Michael Jordan was known as the ultimate grudge guy. He held grudges at the highest level. This guy's on top of that because Jordan only held grudges in what sport?
Basketball.
This guy holds a grudge at everything.
Yeah.
In every single thing. It is not going away anytime soon. It's not going away anytime soon. And I have a feeling that one tweet, do you guys remember when he said, you guys have to realize, you have only Trump for 4 more years. You got me for 40 more years.
Yep.
He ain't lying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I really respect Patrick Bet David quite a bit. He's my Persian brother, of course. But I think he's got this completely wrong. When you analyze Elon Musk, he is existential by nature. And when it comes to existentialism, you're not really going to be, of course, he's going to be offended by what people say. I think there's been, multiple examples of him being very upset by what people have said. But then you also have an example where the PayPal mafia literally stabbed him in the back in the early, 2000s or wherever, whenever he was kicked out of PayPal. And now he's friends with most of those guys, David Sachs, Peter Thiel, et cetera, et cetera. That doesn't seem like a guy that holds grudges. So I think what this really comes down to is the fundamental nature of the Trump administration when they said that they are going to rein in spending, and then the big beautiful bill was literally the opposite. Unfair decisions around increasing subsidies for old technology, decreasing subsidies for new technology that he happens to be in. Again, it's not as black and white, but I think it's much more directly correct to say that than to say the other thing. And so when it comes to actually influencing government and influencing policy, there's going to be a lot less of picking a president that says is going to do everything that he wants to do. And I think the approach that Musk is taking with the American Party is to have Congress actually be more aligned with what he would view as the will of the people. Some could say is a malicious way of getting his policy in there, but that's the strategy way. I think that's just going to be the strategic path there for Elon. It's been proven many times over the course of American political history, it seems, that the party that really has power in this country is Congress. It's not the president. Everything goes down to Congress. Congress has to control the purse, so they're the ones that decide how much money the government spends. They're the ones that create the laws. They're the ones that pass the laws. And when you have a country that's, 23% of the population approves of the Congress and the job they're doing, 80% disapprove, and you have 44% of the country being independent, but 99.6% of the Congress, Senate, and the House are either Republican or Democrat. So independents are massively unrepresented in Congress. You have this recipe for disaster. And that's what Elon's going after. Elon's not going for the presidency. Elon's going for Congress because that's where the rubber hits the road. That's where the big, beautiful bill gets created. That's where it gets passed, right? And when you don't have term limits in Congress, you can do this. You can do this for a long time. Because you can just keep feeding money to these politicians that are going to lobby for you. And they're going to do whatever you want them to do, right? And so, it's weird projecting that onto a person, in this case, Elon. Of course, he's going to have his motives. I'm not going to say he's going to be a total saint. But when you have a body in government that has been completely decoupled from the will of the people, and you have a person that's trying to direct the government's responsiveness to the people in a positive manner, I don't think it's wise to apply the same type of behavior that the old party would do to this new person. But that's my take. I could be wrong, but I think at a fundamental level, that's been misread. Elon has proven multiple times that he's just very existential when it comes to his decision making. And it's a lot less about feelings and a lot more about what is humanity's direction. Spending is out of control. The birth rate's collapsing. We have a giant wealth gap, et cetera, right? The KPIs are obvious. The metrics are obvious. And I think that's ultimately what Elon's going after.
I love this tweet from Sawyer Merritt. It says, XAI was founded in March of 2023. Just 28 months later, it's now the #1 model in the world, verified by independent testing. Incredible achievement. I mean, it is insanely fast compared to everything else that's being built. I remember when in May 2 years ago, when Elon was first raising money, and I had a chance to sit in on a investor pitch in the first round for XAI, and he said, I'm going to have 100,000 GPUs, H100s operating by the end of the summer. And everybody's like, no friggin' way. And he did just that. And he's not slowed down. So There was a conversation years ago about AI getting to a point where you can't understand the questions it's asking and answering. And we're not far from that. So we're unable to actually, at some point, we're unable to measure how rapidly it's advancing. That becomes a little bit frightening.
Got to be driving Google nuts that Elon got this done in 28 months from a cold start.
Absolutely.
Largely because, Elon is phenomenal at large scale manufacturing, large scale organizational management, and people working 4 or 5 a.m., sleeping in tents on the factory floor. That's his wheelhouse, and that's Tesla, that's SpaceX, and because all the intellectual property was more or less open sourced by the research community at Google and Meta, he was able to pick up all that brilliant thinking and just plow it into implementation.
Also small teams, right? It's not large. I mean, Google's a massive organization.
Yeah.
I think there's something else here, though. Remember, we talked about this last time when Grok 3 came out, right? But when he said he was going to put this huge cluster together, every AI expert in the world said you cannot get power laws and coherence at that scale. You just can't do it. And he went right back to first principles, created new kind of connections between the chips and whatever, and did it. And every AI expert is like, oh, God dang, he did it. And so this is the incredible ability he has to go into a domain with a beginner's mind, go to first principles, and just re-engineer the heck out of it to achieve massive performance. You've been in this space for a while. Now we have Grok 4, right? What are the types of things that Grok 5 will be able to do?
So Grok 5 will be a multi-agentic system, but rather than having 4 boosters, it'll have 60 or 600 or 6,000, depending on what you want. It'll probably have a world model plugged in, and it'll have interconnectivity, and this is something that Elon mentioned yesterday, to every major type of system. So it knows how to use Maya, it knows how to use advanced physics simulators. It will write its own lean code and optimize it for mathematics. And so it's just going to be like an incredibly versatile worker. And just like he's going to unleash millions of Optimus robots, he's going to unleash billions, if not trillions of these things, GPU demand, withstanding, into the economy. And that's going to be a bit crazy. And I think the way that you'll interact with Grok 6, probably Grok 5, is you'll have a Zoom call with it just like you have now.
Dave, what I find interesting is Elon's got basically a limitless capital supply.
Yeah.
It's every time he's gone to raise money, I've asked, well, how much can I get for the next round? And it's like, well, we're oversubscribed already.
Yeah. Yeah, it's no, the constraint isn't going to be the money. It's going to be the GPUs.
Yeah, I think the commentary here is spot on. This is just proof of what Elon does the best, which is figure out how to do really hard things that are really expensive, that are very hard to do, better than anybody, faster than anyone. He's, the ultimate entrepreneur of our time. I think that is undeniable. I think the stuff he's doing with Grok 4 proves it with the benchmarks that they've been able to prove out. What he's doing with Robotaxi in Austin is a perfect example of that. What he's been able to achieve with Starship thus far has been very impressive and more to come. But then you have Falcon Heavy and Falcon 9 plummeting the cost of space and dominating the space industry. This is just Elon's ecosystem coming to fruition to the point where I think it's going to surprise people just how plentiful the different companies and services that Elon Musk is creating are going to be accessible by the masses, with Robotaxi being basically a transportation mode where most people are going to drive the car's just going to come pick them up. They're not going to have to think about going from point A to point B, and it's going to be cheaper than anything they could do. With Grok 4, Grok 5, Grok 6, the knowledge-based sort of the thing that just helps you do whatever you want in the digital world. You have the cost of space plummeting and going to Mars and the moon and all the industries that open up there, Neuralink, et cetera, et cetera. This sort of Mars beta thing that he's building here on Earth, that's all the critical things that are needed to create a colony on Mars. All the people living on Earth are benefiting from the first steps of creating that massive colony, right? It's almost like Elon's vision for Mars, it's almost like he went through a mushroom trip of sorts, and then he's like, okay, what are all the different variables I need? Charles Hoskinson was talking about this on a podcast, which was fascinating to listen to, but it's so accurate. It's almost like Elon went through a mushroom trip, and all of a sudden he's like, wow, here are all the different variables I need to build a colony on Mars. I should build them on Earth first to try them out. I think that's dead on. And this is just a result of that. It's like this maniacal existential thing that we talked about, to build those things before it's too late, before he dies, right? He needs to build those things before we can go to Mars, so that when we start going to Mars, he can start sending those things. And that's what the humanoid robots are. That's what, the Tesla cars are, which are electric vehicles that can operate without oxygen on the surface of Mars. That's what the tunnels are, to live on the ground. It was such a fantastic, elegant observation by Charles. And he nailed it. And it's reflected in the performance of his companies.
He said Jeff is really good at finding good people, at seeing strength in people. Like Elon is also extremely good. I don't know what that is. Actually, I've never actually seen, maybe you could speak to that. He's good at finding greatness.
I don't think he's finding as much as he's attracting. He's attracting the talent because of the audaciousness of his goals and his mission, the clarity by which he states it. He doesn't have to go scour the earth to find the best people. The best people come to him because he is, talking about Elon here, one of the singular most invigorating figures in both the same order of the universe here, haters and lovers, right? Like, he's having such an impact at such a scale that of course he's got to have literally millions of people think he's the worst person in the world. And he's also going to have millions of people thinking he's the greatest gift to humanity. Depending on the day, I'm somewhere in between, but I'm more on the greatest gift to humanity end of the scale than I'm on the other end of the scale. And I think that really inspires people in a way that we've almost forgotten. That level of audacity is so rare that when we see it, we don't fully know how to analyze it. We think of Elon as finding great talent, and I'm sure he's also good at that. But I also think that this beacon of the mission, we're going to fucking Mars. We're going to transform transportation into using electricity. We're going to cover the earth in internet. It's so grand.
I guess you see in startups at the early stages, but like, it's cool to see it at a large company that's actually able to achieve scale,
I think part of the secret there is that Elon actually knows things. And when you know things, you can evaluate the quality of work products. And when you can evaluate the quality of work products, you can very quickly tell who's full of shit and who will actually take you to Mars. And you can fire the people who's full of shit, and you can bet on the people who get us to Mars. That capacity to directly evaluate the competency of individuals is actually a little bit rare. It's not widely distributed among managers, hiring managers. It's not something you can easily delegate to people who are not very skilled at the work itself. And Elon obviously knows a lot about a lot, and he can smell who knows stuff for real. And the capacity to evaluate work product is a superpower when it comes to hiring.
There's a step that I've seen Elon do really well, which is be able to show up and say, this can be done simpler.
Yes.
But he knows what he's talking about. And then the engineer, because Elon knows enough, the engineer's first reaction, you can kind of tell. Like, it's almost like rolling your eyes if your parent tells you something.
Yes.
This is not, no, I've been working on this for a month. You don't know. But then when you have that conversation a little more, you realize, no, it can be done simpler. Find the way.
Yeah, I think this commentary is completely spot on. When I used to work at Tesla, the reason why I wanted to join Tesla was because of Elon, and because Elon set this gigantic goal, and I saw the products actually come to fruition with the Model S and the Model X, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, holy shit, like, this is actually possible. I want to work for that guy. And then the other flip side of that was, I know the company is going to compensate me properly because they want the employees to be bought into the culture, and they do that by giving employees stock, right? So it was like this sort of very good relationship where it's like, you're going to get to work on amazingly incredible things that are going to be very, very difficult to do. But if we're successful, you're going to get the winnings on the other side. And that's how he attracts people. That's the magnetism. It's you're going to work on world-changing stuff, and we're going to take care of you. But it's going to be freaking hard. It like selects for the most audacious, batshit crazy people on the planet that will also become wealthy beyond their dreams, basically, once they're successful. And Elon, as the leader, he puts himself out there in the front lines from a work perspective and just going all out perspective. And that's super inspirational to everybody working out there at his companies, right? That's the formula, but that's extremely difficult to replicate because that requires a leader that's willing to sacrifice a lot of his or her time and sanity and health to be able to do that. And it just seems Elon is just predisposed to live like that. And that's why he's so successful. And that's why his businesses are so successful. And that's why he has a shot to be probably the dominant force in industry for the next 20 years, or as long as he's alive and as long as he can keep his brain salient and usable.
Our bestie Elon released Grok 4 Wednesday night. 2 versions, base model and a heavy model, $30 a month for the base, $300 a month for this heavy model, which has a very unique feature. You can have a multi-agent feature. I got to see this actually when I visited XAI a couple of weeks ago, where multiple agents work on the same problems and they do that simultaneously, obviously, and then compare each other's work. And it gives you kind of like a study group, the best answer by consensus. Really interesting.
Can you please show Elon's tweet about how they did on the AGI benchmark? It's absolutely incredible. 2 things. One is how quickly, starting in March of 2023, so we're talking about less than 2.5 years, what this team has accomplished and how far ahead they are of everybody else, as demonstrated by this. But the second is a fundamental architectural decision that Elon made, which I think we didn't fully appreciate until now. And it maps to an architectural decision he made at Tesla as well. And for all we know, we'll figure out that he made an equivalent decision at SpaceX. And that decision is really well encapsulated by this essay, The Bitter Lesson, by Rich Sutton. And Nick, if you can just throw this up there. But just to summarize what this says, it basically says in a nutshell that you're always better off when you're trying to solve an AI problem, taking a general learning approach that can scale with computation, because it ultimately proves to be the most effective.
One thing I'll throw out there, Chamath, is the Tesla approach for autonomy is taking human knowledge. In fact, the whole idea is to approximate human driving, right? That is the whole damn thing. Now, depending on your approach and the technology, you can do like what's called an end-to-end approach, or you can look at, okay, perception, prediction, planning, and control, which are like these 4 modules that sort of you sort of engineer, if that makes sense. But it's approximating human driving to do it. The difference is that, you know, I think Elon's taken almost a more human approach, which is like, I've got 2 eyes. Why can't my car do it like a human? Like, I don't have any LiDAR spinning around on my head as a human. Why can't my car? So it's kind of interesting. He's sort of taking what you're saying, Chamath, on the computation side, because hardware 5 is coming out on Tesla probably next year, which is going to make a big difference in what FSD can do. That's the compute side you're talking about, but then he is approximating human.
Yeah, I just meant that, you know, other than the first versions of FSD, which I think Andre Carbutt talked about, you know, they're not really so reliant anymore on human labeling per se.
And I'll start to get to the edge of what's known in quantum physics. And I've gotten pretty damn close to some interesting breakthroughs just doing that. And I pinged Elon at some point. I'm just like, dude, if I'm doing this and I'm super amateur hour physics enthusiast, like, what about all those PhD students and postdocs that are super legit using this tool? And this is pre-Grok 4. Now with Grok 4, like there's a lot of mistakes I was seeing Grok make that then I would correct and we would talk about it.
We could probably do things that we didn't think were possible. Teleportation. I mean, who knows what's possible?
Yeah. But remember, you know, how Elon talks about Grok and about AI generally is about, why are we here? What is the purpose?
Meaning of the universe, yeah.
What is the meaning of the universe? How does it work? And a sort of fierce truth-seeking mechanism there.
Yeah, and on a tactical basis too, people forget how good Elon is at factories and physical, real-world things. What he did standing up Colossus made like Jensen Huang was like, how is this possible that you did this, right? So pressing that, his ability to build factories, and he said many times, like, the factory is the product of Tesla. It's not the cars that come out of the factory or the batteries, it's the factory itself. So if he can keep solving the energy problem with solar on one side and batteries, and standing up, Colossus 2, 3, 4, 5, he's going to have a massive advantage there. Elon wanted to do something really disruptive, like he open sourced his patents for, charging. If he open sourced the data set and self-driving, does anybody have the ability to produce robo-taxis at the scale he can do it? I don't think so.
Yeah, I think this is 100% dead on yet again. I think the approach that Elon's taken with artificial intelligence is the right one. We can see it with the Robotaxi network in Austin. If you've been watching my videos on my channel, you can see that Robotaxi has been doing some great rides in Austin. It's way smoother than a Waymo. It's way smoother than any driver, honestly, that I've been. It's smoother than I am. It's just because it's learned from every good human driver that has driven a Tesla. And that's exactly to the point here where, with the approach of just maximizing compute as much as you can, which is that bitter lesson, you're just dumping as much money as possible into as many chips as possible. And then the magic becomes in how to make those chips work together instead of like being super clever about the algorithms or the approach you use. These are like loose words, they're incorrect, but the approach you use and how to make few chips work, you're much better off just dumping as many chips as humanly possible and just letting them go to work. And so when you do that, you're able to just dump as much data as possible on that massive training compute. And then it can take the best examples of human drivers. And then the result is you have Robotaxi. It's a phenomenal robot driver in Austin that is getting paid rides already. And it's expanding faster than Waymo has. Waymo took years to expand its original geofence area. Tesla did it in 3 weeks. And it's getting to a point now where it's quite usable. I mean, I'm actually going to legitimately use Robotaxi on a daily basis, not because it's a cool thing, but because it's actually usable and it makes sense for me to use it. That's a perfect example of the results of the approach that Elon has taken with AI.
Is now the right time for a third party? Elon seems to think so. Last week, he announced that X, he would be creating a new political party. I'll let you decide who daddy is in this one. He said, quote, when it comes to bankrupting our country with waste and graft, we live in a one-party system, not a democracy. He's not yet outlined a platform for the American Party. We talked about it here last week. I listed 4 core values, which seem to get a good reaction on X. Fiscal responsibility / Doge, sustainable energy and dominance in that. Manufacturing in the U.S., which Elon has done single-handedly here. Pronatalism, which I think is a passion project for him. And Shabbat, you punched it up with the 5th, technological excellence. According to Polymarket, 55% chance that Elon registers the American Party by the end of the year.
A couple points.
Yes.
The idea of Elon creating a third party is for any other human being like absolutely absurd and ridiculous. Elon has obviously done incredible things, so dismissing anything he's touching is a bad idea. However, I think the best metaphor I've seen is it's a little bit like Michael Jordan tried to play baseball.
Okay.
And became a replacement level baseball player, which is actually really hard to do, by the way. Elon is probably a replacement level politician. He's Michael Jordan for entrepreneurial stuff, but the third party stuff is not going to work. First of all, that chart is misleading. It's a flaw of averaging. It's badly designed and it's a flaw of averaging. It's incredibly popular among Republicans. He actually has the highest approval rate of any Republican ever measured in recorded history. It's 95%. Reagan was peaked out at 93%. It's just Democrats don't like him, which is perfectly fine. Being polarizing is an ingredient to being successful, including with people on the show. The other thing Elon, I think, is missing, and the proponents of what he's doing is people vote not just for ideas, they vote for people. It's a combination. The product is what do you believe and who are you? And you can't divorce the two. Trump is a person, and that generates a lot of enthusiasm. And it's one of the reasons why he has challenges in midterms, because he's not on the ballot. His ideas may be on the ballot, but he is not specifically on the ballot. So because Elon can't be the figurehead of the party, he literally can't constitutionally, you need a face. It's a person, Obama, a Clinton.
Okay, it's called Elon is almost always right. Okay, right.
And I was right about everything.
So let's just be real. And honestly, the things he's upset about and that he's riled up about, especially when you look at the deficit, man, I am right on board that train. Part 1. Part 2. we've never had somebody with this kind of capital that can be a quote unquote party boss outside of the system, right? And there's a lot of people that agree with the types of things he's saying, and he knows how to draw, Elon in his own right kind of has a populist vibe, like he does his thing, and he's turned X into what it is, and he's a big part of X. And so I think it's great. And honestly, there's the moves you can make on Senate and House, and just having a few folks, and then being levers then to get the things you want done. That's part one. And then part two of that is the threat of that happening can make good things happen separately, even if it doesn't go all the way. I just love it. I'm on the Elon train.
Yeah, I'm in love with this role for Elon more than picking a party, because he's picking a very specific platform that I think resonates with folks, which is just balance the budget. Don't put us in so much debt.
Yeah, I'm much more aligned with the latter half of this conversation versus the Patrick Bet David one. I do think that the original point around Elon not being able to have too much impact in politics, sort of like it's like a Michael Jordan in baseball, I think, again, is sort of like missing the whole point that most of Congress does not represent the actual will of the people. Again, those stats, 44% of the country is independent, 99% of the Congress is either Republican or Democrat. And so the independents of this country are not represented. So even if Trump has a 95% approval rating with the Republicans, that's still 25% of the country. The other 75% is not represented by the president per se, right, in Congress. And then if you remove the Democrat side, then most of the people are neither Democrats or Republicans. And those are the people that are missing. And that's Elon's pathway to actually have some sort of influence in Congress. Again, depending on how you view his role in government, aligning it closer to the will of the people or aligning it closer to his will, there is a giant opportunity for something to align Congress closer to the independents than either the Republicans or Democrats. And the independents don't like the spending of the country, of Congress, and how willy-nilly they've been doing it. They don't like the direction of wars in the country. They don't like the direction of health in this country. They don't like the direction of the birth rate in this country, right? So these are things that independents care about versus what Democrats and Republicans, perhaps that's not their biggest priority. So that's a very important piece, again, that gets missed here, is that the pathway for change is possible. It's just, it hasn't been done because the system is too bureaucratic, and you need an actual hammer, a true hammer to come in and make some change. And, Elon is almost always right. I think that point was a very good one, but it's also like, the old adage of never bet against Elon. This is probably another place where that's wise.